You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their missions through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media.
Jenny, today we got a spotlight episode. David Rosenberg, he's the Executive Vice President of Growth and Experience at SSA Ventures.
Yeah, excited to talk to David today. He's definitely has the credentials to be on this podcast. He's been in the industry for quite some time. I think many of our listeners might actually know him from the time that he spent at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and more recently has joined SSA Ventures, part of SSA Group, of course. And we're going to talk to him today about really how to create a seamless visitor experience for your guests, and really how can you stay connected with them from the time you first start marketing to them to after their visit, how they become a member and a donor, and how to maybe skip over some of those pinch points that many might fall into when thinking through this experience.
Yeah, and David was a previous chair at IAPA, so he kind of talks about networking, kind of how you can elevate your career, do your job a little bit better. And then I like how we end this episode where he talks about Gen Z. So stick around for that one. All right, let's get into the show. All right, David, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So give us your journey. How did you get into space? I mean, you're at Monterey Bay forever, and now you're at SSA. How did you end up here?
Well, Ryan, I'm going to take you way back, and then I'll tie that into how I ended up at SSA. And so I think about my childhood and think about the first memories in childhood. And for me, it was going to attractions. I was 6, 7 years old, and every summer my parents would load myself and my two brothers into a car. We'd drive from Scottsdale, Arizona to San Diego, and we would spend a week headquartering out of San Diego. One day was at San Diego Zoo. And I have a great memory of Chester the bear. We'd go by and the bear would wave at the carts as they went by at the zoo. The next day we'd go to SeaWorld San Diego, and I was always inspired that I wanted to be a trainer when I grow up and be with marine mammals. And then we would go to Disneyland, and that would be kind of wrap up. We'd go to Disneyland and my mother loved It's a Small World. She'd clap along the way. We had to go on it 2 or 3 times, which, oh my gosh, I don't know how we did that. But that was my childhood, and these memories really kind of catapulted me as I was going through high school and college to want to make sure that I was in the attractions industry. And I got that opportunity. My first job in college, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I was a lifeguard at Typhoon Lagoon at Walt Disney World on their college program. And that really opened my eyes to the world of attractions. Each year, every summer, I went back thereafter in internships and then eventually into a professional position with Walt Disney World. After that, got recruited to Hyatt Hotels Corporation, where I was an hotel executive for almost 11 years, and then landed at the Monterey Bay Aquarium about 17 years ago. So you can see how that ties back to that childhood dream that when I was 7, always going through attractions, getting to be part of all those different sides. So a couple of years ago, as I was in Monterey and just loving every day of what we did at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, I was paying very close attention to SSA as well. And SSA is a partner in Monterey, operates our food and beverage and merchandise, and has done so for a very long time. But SSA was growing throughout the attractions industry in the United States and beyond. And it was very noticeable and something that I wanted to be part of. I've always been focused, because of my background, on what a visitor experience should look like, what it is today, how do we always exceed expectations of the visitor, and what does tomorrow look like? And by joining a company like SSA that is focused on that, and quite frankly, the growth of SSA depends on understanding what that future visitor experience is and building on it. That was really exciting to me, and that really led my journey to join SSA Ventures.
I mean, it's the attraction space. I always say it's like, oh, it's better than a funeral home or something like that. So I love bringing it back to your childhood. It is a fun space to work in. So it's kind of an easy question to ask or to answer.
Oh, right. And my kids think that all I do is play every day and ride roller coasters, and it's partly my fault because I show them pictures of me riding roller coasters. But clearly, it's just a very dynamic industry and yes, it is definitely a lot more exciting than running a funeral home.
It's the best way to make your kids proud. So tell us a little bit from Monterey to SSA Group. Really, what does the day in the life of David Rosenberg look like today compared to what it maybe was before?
Yeah. Well, I think a little bit, let me tell you a little bit more about what SSA Ventures is, why we formed it, and how that informs what my daily life is. The idea with Ventures was to fill in the voids in the guest experience that were voids out there in the attractions that we either serve or in other attractions. And so as an example, SSA has always been very big in the food and beverage and merchandise and ticketing space within an attraction. And we know that's a very big part of the visitor experience, but it's a lot more than that. You can think about a visitor experience. It starts from the time that somebody is thinking about going to an attraction to the first interaction they have when they get there, how it all ties together, and then trying to stay connected well thereafter. And so SSA Ventures was formed to fill those voids and really come up with innovative solutions that carry an attraction and visitor experience forward. And so what is my daily, how does my daily role tie into that? It's just that. It's working with the various companies that make up our Ventures platform. We have quite a few companies that we interact with that we either own or we work very closely with. And it's working closely with those companies, being strategic about understanding what the future brings and helping to build those companies to support that future. And likewise, working within the institutions that we operate within and helping them to fill in those voids. And so I really focus my time on working with those institutions and also just building the future and making sure that we're always staying ahead of the curve.
And David, you guys are like, the SSA Group is huge within the zoo community, within the museums. Some of our audience are running gardens. Like maybe you can give them the 30,000 feet view. Like you guys would handle food and beverage.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely there's all the different parts, and we say kind of the revenue generating parts of an attraction is probably where we're most powerful in. And that's our core SSA areas will operate food and beverage. We take over the entire food and beverage operations of an organization and bring in our expertise, bring in our chefs, and we operate that within the attractions that we support. Same within the merchandise space, and then as well as even ticketing. And ticketing is really exciting because ticketing is a lot of it. It's not just how do you sell a ticket, but it's how people expect to purchase a ticket, or how do people want to engage with that facility? Because that's kind of, when you buy a ticket, you're really buying a license to have a good experience for the day, and that's how we look at it. And so we operate in each of those spaces. Now, beyond that, with our ventures company, SSA Ventures, it's everything else now that are around those areas. So, for an example, we have a company called Behavior Essentials, which is it's part of the recruitment of the organization that we support, and it helps to understand who you're hiring and where people are getting, or how to hire people to really make an impact across an organization. So that's like one area. We have Attractions.io, which is our platform, and that's Attractions.io is an app that again ties into ticketing, to the visitor maps that people are using while they're visiting, to how do we push people through an attraction in different ways to really maximize their experience, to then staying connected. That's Attractions.io. We have Cinchio. We have a lot of other companies that all tie in there. And you can see how when you bring forward this really powerful platform of technology, expertise, and management, we really are able to step in and help an organization not only increase their visitor experience, but really figure out how to make the most revenue within their attraction as well.
You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their mission through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media. Attend Media is a media planning and buying agency specializing in zoos, aquariums, gardens, and museums. For more information, please visit attend.media. Now, back to Ryan and Jenny.
So speaking of visitor experience, look, before we hit record, you had this nice little phrase called seamless experience, where you're trying to marry marketing and that visitor experience. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. One of the key parts I always say is to make sure that there's no pinch points along the visitor journey. And what does a visitor journey look like? Well, if I'm sitting home last night and we're actually planning our summer vacation 6 months out. And so my family is sitting around and we're looking for, where should we go? What is the experience going to be like for whatever we pick? And so I always I like to say it's almost like a sandwich, right? So the first bun is, hey, the outside bun is, where am I going to go? What's that experience going to be like? How am I going to get there? All the plan that goes into that. Now, once I'm there, you got that meat in between, the seamless visitor experience that ties in with that. So now I set my expectation based on the marketing that I saw ahead of time. I buy my ticket or I buy my journey there. When I get there, it needs to be smooth all the way through, because we don't want pinch points along the way, or that really derails that experience. And so I have this great visitor experience that ties me all the way through, from the time I buy my ticket to how I arrive, how I find my way through until afterwards. And then that other bun is, how do I stay connected? And so if I had that great experience, I really want to stay connected. Of course I want to stay connected, because that builds loyalty. That builds I continue to learn about the organization. I'm going to talk about it more because I've stayed connected. And in a nonprofit world, if I stay connected, most likely I'm going to want to become a member and hopefully a donor in the long run. And so not having pinch points allows people to smoothly go along that transition, that pathway all the way through. If you have a pinch point, if you get there and you get lost and you don't see everything that you want to see, or you had a hard time buying your ticket, or even after you left, there was no opportunity to stay connected, then that whole visitor journey, that whole sandwich falls apart. It's kind of like when you bite into a sandwich, if you don't have the toothpick that goes through, it all squirts out the back. That's not a good thing, right? Because I've
done that so many times, yes.
I do that all the time too. It's awful. But if I have that toothpick that carries it all the way through and I leave that toothpick in there, then that sandwich comes through and it's a seamless bite. And that's kind of how I think of the visitor experiences. We really want to create no pinch points, no opportunity to derail, and we're going to be very successful in carrying that person all the way through to the tail end of the journey.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, because Jenny and I, we're kind of at that very beginning of the customer journey, and we rarely see the tail, or the meat and the bottom bun of the sandwich, if you will. And Jenny, I think what he's kind of talking about, to kind of translate it over into some of the language that we might use, is, he's 6 months out from planning that family vacation. Well, at that point, when that consumer is ready, that window is open for them to go start that planning process. That's where we would use very kind of impactful media to kind of help build that excitement, build that, for lack of a better term, brand. And so, David, when I say impactful media, I'm talking about things like television commercials or online video or billboards, something that's visual, something that builds that excitement. But as you and your family get a little bit closer to that vacation time, it's like, now we actually have to go make a buying decision. And that's where, Jenny, we would use media like what we call opportunistic. So maybe this is a search ad or a little Facebook ad retargeting you from 3 months ago when you first visited that website, saying, hey, now's the time to purchase that ticket. But once again, David, we don't see that's the top of the bun. We don't see the meat in the bottom of the bun as much as we'd like to. So do you have any ideas on what maybe pinch points would be after the visit? Any thoughts on how to keep that visitor engaged and maybe move them over to a member, or maybe even better, like a donor?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always joke with our sales people, our marketing staff, that they sell the dream and then we service the dream. And while it's a fun statement, that is the reality, right? If you sell a dream or you sell a vacation, you better be darn sure you're going to meet the expectation that you've set, because you're setting an expectation through your marketing. And not only should you meet that, but you want to exceed it. And when you exceed it, then you really have true success. And so that is always our goal, and that's how we want to stay, carry that through to the tail end. We exceed the expectation. People then are enamored or are engaged with what our facility stands for, our operations stand for, and then they want to stay connected. They want to hear more marketing from us. They want to hear what the latest is happening, and likewise how they can support us going into the future. So that's one key point. The second is when we exceed expectations, then it almost sounds cliche when we say, hey, people, our best marketing is word of mouth. But the reality is word of mouth is huge, right? Social media, everything that people do. People post social media when you exceed their expectations. People post social media, and when you exceed expectations, not only that, but they're the ones putting their own words out there about how you did that. And that's helping marketing in ways that you can never dream of. And so that is always going to be a key part of how we want to make sure that we keep people engaged thereafter as we exceed their expectations. And the third thing that comes to mind too is just aligning with people's values. When people really make decisions based on the values that they have, their emotions, aligning with empathy. I talk a lot about empathy when I talk with people, because when you build empathy in people, then they build loyalty. When you build loyalty, of course, that translates into some of our best marketing and some of our best connections moving forward. And so anything we can do to build empathy throughout the visitor journey is always key as well. And some of that ties into some of the stuff we just talked about no pinch points along the way, creating a really solid visitor experience. And we build these pathways to stay connected and get people to be our marketing champions of the future.
Yeah, I love that. We always say it's better to have somebody else be out there being your champion than you telling everyone how great you are, right? So the word of mouth piece is huge for marketing. That's like, how can we pull some of that into our marketing approach, what we're saying to try to reach new customers as well too. So you've got to give that great experience to be able to get that great word of mouth going around about you too.
I have a quick fun story related to that. We, SSA, we are, one of our properties is called Long Neck Manor. I guess the best description is like a safari park with very, very high-end suites that are around this beautiful savanna in the Texas Hill Country. And we have rhinos and giraffes and some other animals. And one of the rooms actually sits on top of the giraffe barn. So when a visitor checks in, they go into their suite and they're looking out at the giraffe in their barn, especially at night. And the giraffes are walking around. And it's just, what a great opportunity to see something like that, and something that people have never seen before. And so this is a relatively new experience. This has only been around we opened our doors less than 2 years ago. And one of the first couples that went and stayed in the giraffe suite posted a 10-second video on TikTok about how this completely exceeded their expectations. And it was along the lines of, oh my gosh, I've never seen something like this. This is amazing. This exceeded my expectations. It went on TikTok. It went viral. It had over 10 million hits. And that giraffe suite was booked out for almost 2 years solid the day after that. And so I know everybody always says, hey, I want to get something to go viral on TikTok. There's no big epiphany here. But what went viral is the fact that we exceeded the expectations of that visitor and probably the people that watch something like this, and everybody wanted to be part of something like that. So I always thought that's a great example.
Okay. So I love going back to this point here. We talked about television, bringing that impactful media, right? And, your Disney background makes me think of this. Every time you see a Disney commercial, it's the little kid with the mom and dad holding Mickey's hands, watching the fireworks. But we all know that never, ever, ever happens. There's 10,000 other people trying to hold Mickey's hands at the same time, right? But you see somebody's real experience on a 10-second video on TikTok, that is just so much more authentic, so much more believable. And it says, okay, I can actually have that same experience where the giraffe is coming up and it's super cool. I don't know. That totally makes sense. Thanks for dropping the TikTok thing, because we're big believers in that just because of that authenticity. It's real,
It's real, right? And people can see themselves in the feet of or the person that they're seeing on TikTok. So
Exactly.
when people can align with their values and then it aligns with that, hey, they can actually see themselves there. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to be part of. And what a powerful marketing opportunity.
Well, I mean, that's the marketing and guest experience right there. It's a guest experience that you guys can continue to deliver. So we really don't need all that much marketing besides that 10-second video on TikTok to say, hey, this is incredible. Come join us. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit because we can't let you out of here without talking about your IAPA experience. You were a previous chair there. And one of the things that I was hoping you could share with us is this idea of like networking. Like, you're the vice president of marketing, in our audience, there's a VP of marketing at a garden or a zoo somewhere. Maybe what are some takeaways that you could share with them of like how networking and showing up for these type of conferences or big events can help like further their career, help them get a little bit smarter on how to do their job and ultimately sell more tickets for their attraction?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you a little bit about my networking journey, and then how that I think could tie into how people think of networking. As I said, with my career, I was executive in the hotel industry for quite a while before returning to attractions, and it was really important to me my first year at Monterey Bay Aquarium and back in the attractions world that I had a strong network outside of the aquarium, because that network was who I call on if I had questions, if I wanted to build something, a lot of my decisions were based on the network that I interact with. And that network didn't exist for me when I came back into the attractions world. So in my case, I found associations, zoos and aquariums, AZA, and IAPA, the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. IAPA was really exciting to me because it represented people from literally all over the world in all parts of the attractions industry. And so in my mind, it was like, wow, if I can network within an organization like this, then the world's my oyster. I can really, I can build a huge network. And so stepped into that association, started attending all the different events that the association offered, and quickly found opportunities to join various committees within the association. And then the network quickly grows. As soon as you join a committee, you have 15 people that you're around on a regular basis, and you're having conversations with about whatever that committee stands for. In my case, I wanted to make sure I was part of the leadership of those committees, so I ended up chairing various committees within IAPA. Over time, as I'm chairing these various committees, got invited to join the board of directors. Board of directors is a global board, and it's an election process. And I joined that board of directors. And then over time, I was actually elected to become chairman of the entire association and chairman of the board. And so you can see how just starting from the idea of, hey, I want to be part of this association because it's going to offer a network, and working within and building networks that build upon each other, ultimately getting the opportunity to chair an organization like that, built a network like I could never dreamed of. So today I'm connected literally to people all over the world. And whether it's on the government side or leading major attractions or just about every discipline. And that really ties well into now the job that I'm doing today, because I am calling on my colleagues, my friends, and not only to share my knowledge, but for them to share their knowledge with me. And we all work together to really, quite frankly, further our industry. And whether that's what I do or that's in the marketing world, where networking is just so valuable, it's building that network, being delivered about building a network. That's really key. And the last comment I have on that is, I think there's also I always say there's two types of contacts. There's the deliberate contact, where it's somebody that I'm like, hey, if I know this person, then I'm going to get into this attraction from the marketing perspective. Or if I have a very specific contact that I'm trying to make, that's a very deliberate, that's a very quantifiable contact. And then there's the non-quantifiable, which is, hey, if I build a network and I build that, hey, I'm actually part of that network and I have my own reputation within that network, good things are going to come to those that are part of that network as well as myself. And that's a non-tangible, but those are the networks that we all call upon each other, and we all together, rising tides rise all boats, and we all work together to do such.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you've clearly had some amazing experiences along your career, 17 years, right, at Monterey Bay and now over at SSA Ventures. So the question that we always like to kind of end with is really, David, based off all of this experience, I think you're the best, probably one of the best ones to answer this question, but what do you think nonprofit cultural attractions should really be doing more of, specifically to marketing, kind of moving forward, what they should be thinking of next?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that I've been passionate about, and I'm passionate just from the experience I've seen around the global attractions industry, is the more that we align with the changing values of our visitors, then the more success that we have. And that really clearly ties into marketing in particular. When you're aligning with the values of the visitors, then your marketing success tends to go up. I love the example that you used earlier about Disney and how that aligns with the values of a family that's sitting there planning their vacation and thinking about, wow, we're going to have this great family time, great experience time together, and we can see ourselves doing that. A couple of years ago, I was really trying to get an understanding as to what would grow a membership within an organization, and a nonprofit organization in particular, because membership was such a key part that it meant that we were successful in the visit, we marketed successfully, that people want to stay connected to us. And we actually did a survey of a couple of thousand member families within various organizations and said, what is the primary benefit of being a member? Why do people want to be members? Why do they want to be marketed to? What is it that makes them want to be connected? And this was exactly what I'm talking about with this generational shift. So people age 35 and older, the generation that I represent, they were really adamant that, hey, I want to be a member because it's a lot of the monetary tangibles, so free admission, priority access. I want to come to member only events, and there's lots of great discounts that come with it. So it was very somewhat monetarily driven. But then when you looked at the same question across the Gen Z people, the families that are now starting to come to our attractions, the ones that are actually taking over as being the majority that are visiting, their answer was very different. It was, yes, we want the free admission that comes with membership, but we want to do something that shows that we support the organization. We want to belong to the organization. We want to support conservation because that's in alignment with our values, and we want to make a positive impact. And that was so telling to me that the up and coming generation was all about alignment with their values. That was driving their decisions versus other generations. And we need to be really conscious of that and understand what this generation has. And there's going to be a generation behind them that probably have different values or different expectations. But we need to understand what the changing expectations are. How do we build empathy? How do we align with the values of the people that we're marketing to? And when we do that, in my opinion, that's the biggest success that we can have in our marketing. And understanding those changing shifts and those generational shifts is just so critical. And so that is always my favorite thing to talk about. And I think that's something that really allows us to all be successful in the future.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. This was a fantastic conversation. And I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. If you have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit our website at marketingattractionspodcast.com.